Hello, Pete, my friend. How are you?
I'm fine, Thomas. How are you today?
I am great, and I do have a question for you.
Okay, let's try it.
You know the film Godzilla, right? Big lizard monster?
Yeah, several of them.
Yes, a lot of them, yes. And have you heard of the movie Them! Exclamation point.
That's delicious ants, right?
That is. Weirdly, I'm not afraid of them, even though they're 18 feet tall. It's the little ones that get me. But yeah, these giant 18-foot tall ants. So we have a giant lizard creature, and we have giant 18-foot tall ants. But Pete, what was Godzilla and Them! Exclamation point really about, would you say?
About technology.
Correct.
About the cultural impact of technology and how damaged we all are as a result.
Exactly. It was a fallout of, good word, a fallout from atomic testing that had been done. And so in that way, yes, popular culture often reflects the current anxieties of our time. Horror films, of course, are a big way to see that. Mm-hmm. And over the last couple of years, I've been noticing a new canon of literature has become enormously popular. And by I noticed it, I read a couple articles. And it's really, this canon, this genre is really dealing with the anxieties being felt by a certain part of our society. And this part of our society is known as, hold on, here, I think it's in my notes. Yes, women. Have you heard of women, Pete?
I have no idea where you're going to go with this.
The genre, and it's been around for decades, but it is really blowing up now. It is feminist dystopian fiction. And why I bring it up in the cold open is because it is clearly dealing with the rampant anxieties and fear that women in our society around the world are currently having. The genre itself, it has stories that usually take place in the future, but like Godzilla and Them! Exclamation point, they're clearly channeling anger and fear that's being felt now. Older writers like Octavia Butler and more recent but still classic writers like Margaret Atwood have been writing, as I said, for decades, but it is really, really blowing up, especially more and more now as more women are speaking out against sexual assault and harassment. And I just read that a record number of women are getting involved in politics and running for office. Have you read some of these kind of books?
This genre? I have, but I have to stop and say, as soon as you started talking about it, is it telling that I was just overwrought with this feeling of anxiety and grief and guilt? And yes, just because of what I look like, is that a rational response to whatever you're talking about?
It absolutely is. I would hope that, Pete, you and I are not a part of the problem, or at least not a huge part of the problem. I'm sure we've been accidental assholes. Oops, can we say assholes? Probably
That's
not.
Actually the new name of this podcast, The Accidental Assholes.
But that being said, the majority of these books are really about, in a way, expressing toxic masculinity as being literally toxic. That there are books about outbreaks of viruses that men give to women, and so women have to isolate themselves. One that I was just reading about, Christina Dalcher's recent debut novel, Vox. It has to do with, listen to this. This is severe. An ultra-conservative political party gains control of Congress and the White House and enacts policies that force women to become submissive homemakers. Girls are no longer taught how to read or write. Women are forbidden to work or hold political office or even express themselves. They are forced into near silence after the government requires all women to wear bracelets that deliver a shock if they exceed an allotted daily word count. Wow. That obviously is extremely severe, but incredibly telling. And this is just one of these kind of books. And many of them are being longlisted already on for the Man Booker Prize. These are serious works. And it just says so much about how awful it has been, I can only imagine, for women for so long. And it's incredibly important that they have their voices and that their voices are being heard more and more now.
And mostly that it is the women who are going to leave Earth, because if I were a woman, why wouldn't I?
There's a lot of leaving men behind. There's a lot of isolating themselves on islands and doing a lot better. As a result, Sleeping Beauties, I just read with Stephen King, wrote it with his son, Owen King. And it has to do with exactly that women just slowly start sort of freezing in place. And to us, they just seem like mummies. To them, they have been transported to this sort of idyllic other universe where it's just women and women being women, and it sounded magical. And of course, back on Earth, all the men are like, "Grr!" and like knocking things over with their penises, and it's like the worst. So I get it. Again, as I said, this has been around for a really long time, but again, to shine one more light on its prevalence right now, Margaret Atwood, of course, wrote the 1985 novel The Handmaid's Tale, which, if you haven't read it, is set in a future theocratic state where women are treated as reproductive slaves. It's obviously a classic. It's a huge TV series right now. And just in 2017, it sold more than 3.9 million copies in the United States. So this kind of genre really has its finger on the pulse of what at least half of humanity is going through.
So get ready, men.
Yeah.
We're on our own, and it doesn't look good.
I'm going to write my own response fiction, and it's just going to call, "We want more stuff!" We already are a dystopia. We're a dystopia in pants.
That's exactly right.
So I'm sorry, women. Thank you for these books. They are incredible. And one, if that's a nice way to sort of end it up on a hopeful note, I read a quote that Margaret Atwood did say. She says she is comforted to see a growing number of people reading and writing dystopian fiction, a scenario, of course, that would be impossible if we actually had a totalitarian government that banned this kind of impression. She said, quote, "The mere fact that you can read it means we're not there yet." And the big word is yet.
Written in all caps and bold.
Exactly.
And actually, there may have been air quotes around it.
Yes, exactly. You can see her do a little wink. So buy up those books now, everybody. Dystopia in pants! Welcome to What's That Smell? A sometimes funny podcast about humans and their anxieties. I'm Tommy Metz III.
And I'm Pete Wright.
And every week, we drag one of our deepest, darkest anxieties into the light to share it, learn about it,
and hopefully laugh about it with all of you. Reach out, send us the story of your anxiety to somethingstinky@whatsthatsmell.net. Something stinky. What's that smell? .net.
Yeah, dig it in there. You're an idiot.
Hey, Tom, that reminds me. I have something stinky to share.
Gross! Share it to yourself, you creep.
Now we're one with the sun over our heads, and at night we'll be the stars. We can go any place that we want to. I don't care if that's too far.
Tommy, you're familiar with the podcast The Anthropocene Reviewed?
No, I'm not even familiar with those words.
Reviewed, I hope that you're a little bit familiar with that one.
Yeah,
and
I got
you
those.
have some familiarity with that. The Anthropocene, the description of the Anthropocene Reviewed is that the Anthropocene is the current geological age in which human activity has profoundly shaped the planet and its biodiversity. Here on the Anthropocene Reviewed, we review different facets of the human-centered planet on a 5-star scale. And continuing my catalog of favorite things that are produced by John Green, this is John Green's solo podcast, and it's released, I think, monthly, in which he takes two things in the Anthropocene and gives them a star rating. Like, for example, episode 5, Hawaiian pizza and viral meningitis. And he talks about each of those things and then gives them a review. Or how about Lascaux paintings and the Taco Bell breakfast menu?
Sure. And then do you have to figure out what they all have in common? Or
no, he just gives you a little sort of a little essay about these things, the impact on humanity, and then says, I give it a 3-star or something like that. And it is super funny and witty and charming. And
sounds like it. Because I can draw a straight line between the Taco Bell breakfast and viral meningitis.
Right.
Just so you know, that is right next to each other. Okay.
It's a long arc, but it does connect. and so it really, I think, is going toward furthering the weight of the word Anthropocene in its place in popular culture. Like, we're talking more about, and I'm not saying directly a result of this podcast, but I think just in general about the impact of humanity on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel about the impact of humanity on the planet, Tom?
Especially now, incredibly anxious about it. So much so that I sort of which is the worst thing to do. I go out of my way to not read full articles about how we have 10 years and then everything is going to be so irreversible. I actually am surprised we have 10 years. So yes, it is very scary.
Well, then this story is going to be a doozy for you.
Okay.
I'd like to read you the stinkiest of stinky emails that has come across.
Please stop saying that.
It actually came through. It actually just came through the day before yesterday, and I have been so excited to share it because it is so very timely.
So this is a listener submission?
It is.
Woo! Okay.
What do you think about that?
I'm excited. I love listener submissions. Okay.
I'd like to read this to you. Pete. I just finished season 1 of WTS as a late member of the community, and I'm thrilled that I don't have to wait all summer for season 2. I finished the final episode of the season and went to open the news app on my phone only to find this article that captures the scope of my anxiety perfectly. And then he links to this article. He continues, whatever you think about politics, I have faith that, quote, we the people will figure out how to navigate the filthy waters of our own sullying. But what this article lays out is a set of conditions that makes me feel helpless, hopeless, and anxious for the future of our species. I feel like we're far from the point of rescue, and now we need to start planning for our post-apocalyptic Mad Max future. I don't know why it feels therapeutic to write this to a podcast. Hope you guys have a little space to laugh about this one. Mark C. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Mark. I'm already chuckling.
Well, yeah.
Although I do love the phrase filthy waters of our own sullying. Oh, my God.
Nice job, Mark.
That is amazing. I love that. Okay.
So, Mark, the article that Mark posted was indeed the article that you already mentioned. The world has barely a decade to avoid disaster. We need to combat climate change now, from the Washington Post. And it documents the release of the 700-page report to the Climate Council and for the UN. Is that where it came from? Anyhow, this massive document that says, you know what, we're already pretty much too late. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the IPCC, released their report that said, we got to do some work to keep warming below 2 degrees Celsius. And it turns out, even though we've been saying that for years, now we're telling you the clock is really, really ticking, and we have about a decade to figure this out, or if not sooner, or things are going to get bad. And how bad are those things going to get? Well, here's a passage from this article. The difference between 1.5 degrees and 2 degrees would be substantial. Coral reefs would go from mostly gone to almost entirely gone. More sea level rise would put up to 10 million more people in danger. High heat would kill more people. It would be much hotter on land and in cities. Deadly mosquito-borne illnesses such as malaria and dengue fever would spread farther. Droughts would be more likely. So would deluges. Tropical fisheries would empty further. Staple crop yields, particularly in some of the world's poorest nations, would decline more. Disastrous loss of Antarctic ice sheets would be more likely. Feedback loops could push warming further than anticipated as, for example, thawing permafrost releases gases from the frozen ground that has been trapped for centuries. Up to nearly 1 million additional square miles of permafrost would thaw at 2 degrees of warming.
And that's where zombies come from.
That's exactly where zombies come from.
It's not going to be cute like Encino Man. It's just going to be just a virus. Well, see, I feel like that might be one of I'm saying the most obvious thing, the biggest problem. That's such a cognitive dissonance to say, oh my gosh, 2 degrees.
Yeah,
like 2 degrees,
but it
who
is
cares?
Celsius, which is kind of a lot if you live here.
Good point.
We don't even know how big that is.
Right. You have to add 32 or something? I don't know.
Yeah. It's 67, actually. It's very weird. And there's a square.
But I do wonder if sometimes like climate change deniers read that first part, like because you read it in order of 1.5 to 2 degrees and stop reading because they're like, oh, shush.
Oh, it's
call me when it's 100 degrees.
Yeah, right. Yeah. My car still has a AC, so I'm not really worried about that. And so, this is one of those things that's really hard to laugh about. I've been sitting here trying to figure out where's the joke in global climate change, and I assure you, I have not found one. It's because it's not funny and it's super scary, and so the laughing that I do is really the laughing that's all around, like not crying.
So we're back to clowns.
Yeah.
Again, we've got our painted on smiles, and inside we're all burning alive. Perfect.
Well, okay. So let's talk just a little bit about what the anxiety, like what is challenging us and where this anxiety comes from. And the first one, and the thing that I think Mark has highlighted there, is the same thing that impacts me, and I think probably impacts you, which is this feeling of where is my control in this scenario, right?
Yes.
And that you as an individual, you have very little direct control over climate change. Like if I could flip a switch, I would flip it. If I could just stop wearing, pants and have everything go back to normal, I would stop wearing pants. Like there are things that I would do in my lifestyle that if I could take control.
Flip a switch and no pants. What if the next report came out and that was the answer? Oh, you'd be eating your words then. Oh.
Are you kidding? Dare to Dream, man. We just became the most popular podcast ever. It's all about like anxieties and prophecies here on what's that smell. Well, we'll tell you what that smell is going to be. That's the real gift of this show. Because it's different than like anxiety around a job that you hate. Right. Or a boss that you get. You can quit your job. You can take control of that experience and be done. Right. You can't just quit climate change. Right. And there's a second one it's all about visibility. Right. That there was a while when you might hear all these stats and be able to tune it out. Right. Because it doesn't necessarily affect you. And if you live in, Los Angeles, probably, more likely than not, you're going to walk outside and it's going to be a pretty nice day.
Right. Yes. Right? Always.
So the increasing weather events that have made this sort of tune out more and more of a challenge, right? It's harder to hide because we're actually seeing the impact. And in Los Angeles, again, in California in general, part of it is that the state is less resilient to heat, right?
Right.
Things
we're
light
always
on fire. And
we're
stay
always
on fire.
Yes,
exactly.
Absolutely. Yeah. We're number one.
You are number one. Go California. And that leads to number 3, which is impact, right? There's this direct and indirect impact. The likelihood of people and infrastructure that you rely on being impacted by climate change, it's going up, right? If you've ever had a FedEx package delayed because of weather in Tennessee, you've been impacted. If you've had a cousin stranded in a Houston high-rise for a week due to flooding, you've been impacted. If you've lost your home or belongings or loved ones in fires and floods, you've been directly impacted. And these direct impacts of these events, it's always been high, but we're in this time where indirect impacts are increasing thanks to pace and scale of these events. And that's the thing that it's getting harder to deny, I think, or at least I like to think.
Right.
God, and then I watch the news and it's so dumb. So stop watching all news and take off your pants.
Oh, I would give anything for just you to play the ending song. And like that's it. You play the ending song. We never do another episode. It's just take off your pants. And then that's
Show's over. Okay, good.
Do you think, unfortunately, that is what it's going to take? The examples you gave escalated really quick from my package is late to I've lost my entire house. Do you think that it's going to have to take somewhere in the middle of that to make people really stand up and believe in it?
I don't know. Let me ask you. I mean, who do you know who's been impacted on any of those 3 levels?
A lot of travel. You did say, I think that someone was, oh no, you didn't. You said a package, but I and a lot of people that I know have been affected by severe weather. And therefore, it just has this ripple effect of airports throughout the entire United States. And people have been stranded at times for days. And I think the easy thing to do is weather's weather, but weather isn't weather. Weather is weaponizing itself because we're jerks. So that's the first thing. I'm sure that there's a ton more, but that's the first thing that definitely comes to mind.
Well, I'm just thinking, I was thinking about myself when I wrote those examples, right? Of course, I've had a FedEx package delayed, right? I mean, you get online, it says weather event in South Carolina means you can't get your goodie, whatever it is, right? and I did. My cousin was stranded in his condo in Houston for days and days and days during the flooding, and it was one of those like weird first world examples of being stranded due to weather because he couldn't get out of his building, but he's also a telecommuter for a great big international company, and he just worked. He had enough ramen and was able to just continue to work as literally the city was drowning. And so
My uncle, of course. My uncle Jay. He recently moved, but he has lived in Florida, Jacksonville, Florida, for years and years and years. And every year there comes a time, because he's one of those people that decides not to evacuate. He boards himself up into his house.
Yep.
And stays there as the entire house and the roof is sort of torn up. And then he gets out and he fixes it. And that happens yearly, and it's only getting worse.
It's only getting worse. There you go. I mean, that's the direct impact. So now we have people who are important to us, and the impact on their lives is going to start impacting ours, right? Because at some point, we go down to Louisiana and we help rebuild those communities. We go down to Florida and Texas and we help rebuild those communities. More so when we're directly impacted to it, but certainly churches and response groups and they do this good work. But I did a book pick not long ago for a book called The Ends of the World.
Right.
The 5 Great Extinctions. Well, I have now finished that book. And one of the things that came out of the end of that book, that the message was that the odds of extinction go up when the rate of change in the environment increases beyond the rate of adaptability of a species.
Ooh.
So how long is it going to take us to continue to fix the places that are destroyed after these weather events come through versus change the way we live such that we adapt to the environment beyond us? So at what point is Uncle Jay going to stop boarding himself up in his house and just move to the 45th parallel? Like, let's go inland, man.
Right.
Like, there is room to fit. There is an answer to these kinds of things. And so anyhow, those are kind of the big
that is
three.
a terrible answer in the long term, though, because we'll all meet in the middle, and weather will keep coming.
Well, that's what they're saying, right? Is that everybody's gonna really? You want to be right around the 45th parallel if you want to avoid all this stuff. It's not too hot, not too cold. It's the Goldilocks zone, and I don't know how we're gonna fit all those people in.
Then
Portland.
We're going to be in the stacks
or Detroit, right? Yeah,
in Ready Player One.
That's exactly where we're going to be. So there's been a lot of conversation about this, and psychologists have tried to explain responses to this kind of anxiety. And there's this wonderful psychologist, Dr. Renee Lertzman, who says that this kind of this increased awareness is leading to a lot of anxiety and trauma and fear, particularly people as they have this greater direct impact. She says people tend to respond to dire scientific projections in one of two very different ways. And there's very little gray area between the two. They double down on optimism. Yay, clean energy, technology, recycling, hope, right? All this great stuff. Or they are completely nihilistic about it, right? Oh, Mr. Shot, nothing matters. Smoke if you got 'em. We're done. Put a fork in it. We're done. I'm going to
put on another pair of pants.
Exactly.
That's really laughing in the face of it.
For all of it. Yeah, exactly. She says we have this innate need and desire to feel like we're good people. But if we experience conflict between our desire to be a good person and our desires, the things we want to do with our life and travel and the things that we want to the gadgets we want, the things that we know are not cool, environmentally, that leads to cognitive dissonance, and that amps your need to pick a side, the optimist or the nihilist. And generally you're going to be a nihilist. And because it's the millennials who are looking around saying, hey, we kind of feel like you painted a target on our back. And statistics show that, now 77% in a recent conservative poll, 77% of young voters think we should try to stop or slow climate change, including 89% Democrats, 77% independents, and 57% of Republicans say we need to take action, that we have a responsibility, and more importantly, we have the tools at our disposal to make change. And we're going to vote on that, right? We're going to come to the polls and we're going to vote with that in mind. So that actually, honestly, gives me a little bit of hope.
That gives me enormous hope if they actually go out and vote. But
I do think that there is room for hope and not just paralyzing pantsless fear. So there are also some things that we can do, and I know this is not a science show necessarily, but if there are people who experience climate change very directly and the science of, for example, you mentioned travel. The science of travel says that, getting in an airplane and running that airplane across the sky, at the scope and scale that we run airplanes across the sky, is a significant impact on the world. So what are the cultural changes that are required for that? One, there are dramatic work changes. We've got to change what we expect of people to be in places at specific times. And maybe that means change the way we adapt to remote work and telework and those sorts of things. Manufacturing and shipping is a challenging thing. We need to figure out what are the alternative technologies. Is this Tesla or Elon Musk's Hyperloop the big answer for energy efficient shipping of large quantities of products around the world? Maybe we need to be doing some more investment in that kind of stuff rather than boats and planes.
Right.
Or are we going to see a change where people end up staying a little bit closer to home so you don't have these mad dashes at travel season for everybody to travel around the world to be with family? Maybe they're already with family. That's one of those other impacts. How can you take an individual action and to change your climate footprint? I don't know, but I have to say, like, it's not great. In my experience, taking action somehow allows you to reclaim a little bit of that control.
When I talked about voting, it's easy sometimes to feel like, well, if it's just me, what difference will that really make? What difference does one vote make? But especially when we're all geared up about voting now, the whole message is one vote makes an enormous difference. And so one house that does recycle or compost, I mean, hopefully that really can make a huge difference.
Well, it does. It makes a direct difference in how you feel about your level of impact, even if it doesn't make a direct, and measurable impact on, on the state of environmental science. But one of the interesting things that came out of this is that, the impact of climate change actually, has a direct impact on our individual health, which is, heat. Dramatic changes in heat make people more irritable, makes them more aggressive to each other and to themselves. Pollution harms our health and exacerbates psychiatric symptoms of anxiety and bipolar disease and obsessive compulsive disorders. All of these things are the dominoes that fall in order as we lose control of our planet. We lose control of ourselves and our own anxiety. And that is something that I think is worth is worth thinking clearly about. Not funny. Take off your pants. So thank you, Mark, for writing in. Yeah, this was a real downer, and you're not alone.
We knew we were going to have to deal with this at some point, and there's not a really fun way to dress this one up.
No,
but it's important to bring up, and thank you so much for bringing that.
Much like dealing with climate change, we knew we would have to deal with climate change on the podcast. It's kind of a meta approach to making a contribution to climate health, but we feel really good that we did it.
Yeah, we can't make it funny. That's the job of our children and our children's children. I'm sure they'll figure it out, just like climate change.
Just be with me. Just be with me.
Peter, you know how sometimes you have a really serious anxiety that is important in the world, and then I have a dumb one? Guess what? That's about to happen again. You just talked about the end of the world.
Climate apocalypse,
and now I'm going to talk about mine. Big stuff. All right, but hopefully it will be relatable. If not, oh well. Goodbye, listeners. All right, how about for mine, we start off with a quick game.
Oh, good. Games.
Okay, I'm going to start reading a list of things, and you yell out when you think you know what they all have in common. And I'll just keep going, and when you're right, I'll stop. Ready?
Okay.
A dress shirt. Eye drops. Jeans. A hat. Sneakers. Hair gel.
Terrible props in a claymation movie.
Medication. Dress shoes. Tie. Toothpaste. Comb. Socks.
Now I just kind of want to see how far
books,
you get.
Razor. Belt. Passport. Toothbrush. Okay, I'm going to stop.
Things that you pack when you go traveling?
Close. These are all things I've desperately needed, but have forgotten to pack while traveling throughout my life. And trust me, the list goes on and on, but I'm going to stop at toothbrush. Pete, if you know me, you know I love to travel, and I've been very lucky and #blessed to see a fair amount of the world because my parents are very loving and they always put travel as a priority for us. And the travel is great. And once I arrive in a new, strange place, I see it as an adventure and I love to go and explore it and figure it out either on my own or with friends or with family. There's no anxiety there. But the packing, Pete. Oh my God. For some reason, since I was an adult that was in charge of doing it myself, I have always had an anxiety of packing for a trip.
Can I just ask why your voice cracked like a 12-year-old when you said, since I was old enough to do it myself? Why did that happen?
Two things. Number one, I'm going through puberty again. I'm very excited about it. Number two, as I was reading that, I literally was just remembering your anxiety, the listener anxiety about the end of the world. And I'm talking about packing. I can't get over. I hate the order that these are going in. This is such a de-escalation. But maybe that's what we need in these hard times.
It is, Tom.
Okay.
We need to talk about this. This is important.
Okay.
This is huge.
So packing for a trip, anxiety. What am I afraid of? I'm afraid I'm going to pack the wrong clothes and be uncomfortable. I'm worried that I won't have the right outfit for a certain event. I'm afraid of forgetting something. All of these I have been worried about for most of my life. And that last item on the list, do you remember what it was? The toothbrush?
Yeah.
I just forgot that on my last trip, Pete. And that was to New York. And that was yesterday. I'm 43. It's not getting better, Pete. It's not getting any better. All right, there is no actual true diagnosis for this anxiety that I can find.
Really?
But it sounds like people on the internet, shut up, have decided on packing anxiety disorder. And before you continue making fun of me, PAD, packing anxiety disorder, people have decided it is a real thing. And on the internet, we are legion. I am not alone. So how dare you, you cackling jerk? Now, maybe I don't need to bring this up. Pete, do you have any relation to this? I'm guessing not.
No, I'm going to tell you right now. I'm going to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
Yes, I do.
Really?
Yeah, but
okay.
it's so fun and easy to laugh at you about it.
I know.
Because that's what we do. But let me tell you, I don't know. I think it's a sub anxiety. This makes me actually maybe weirder than you. It's not a packing anxiety per se. It's a TSA anxiety related to my stuff.
Oh, that you have to unpack it for them or that they're going to go through everything?
Yes.
Oh, sure.
I hate it. And I don't even mind. Like, it's not as if I have a weird, like, problem with showing off my, stuff in a bin, but I have I hate the whole idea of taking out all my crap and having to keep track of it. Maybe it's an ADHD thing, like I'm not going to be able to focus well enough under pressure when they're asking questions about which little pocket my phone was in. Do I have anything in my pockets before I walk through the magnetic cancer machine? Like, there's too much. There's just too much, and it's all related to all the crap I take.
And it's all hurry up, and there's people, and you're grumpy, and it's like, don't blow this, and yeah.
No. I don't even wear shoes anymore to travel because it's like I don't want anything to take off. It's just another thing. So I just barefoot for 36 hours. That's not entirely true, but I do wear travel-friendly shoes. But look, it's made even worse because I try to simplify packing. It used to be I always check my bag because that's where the liquids go.
Sure.
But now I'm trying to go more on this minimalist. See, you poked a dragon with this one, man. I was trying to stay cool, but I have things. But now I've gone to this minimalist travel. I got this Tom Bin backpack that I love, and it has all these little pockets that are on rails and chains and things. You can slide it out so it all stays, and it's so great. But now I'm carrying liquids, and now I have to have a clear bag of liquids and toothpastey type stuff, and that causes me even more anxiety. Tom, I don't know what to do.
There's nothing to do, Pete. If it helps at all, based on your anxiety, it's all going to be over very soon. Now, so it's not the exact kind of thing that I was talking about, but it is definitely involved because it involves having to pack or repack all of your stuff. Of course, the best thing to do is to make a list or even a spreadsheet with everything that you might need. You can have that as a separate on your computer or just alone on a piece of paper, and you can check things off so you don't forget. And I've been doing that for a while. Sounds great, right, Pete?
Totally.
Usually a big help. But I would like to share a very quick anecdote of why I'm an idiot. Just a few years ago, I was going to a wedding with friends in Chicago. And because it was a wedding with a pretty tight turnaround, it added extra anxiety to my normal packing anxiety because I really had to make sure I didn't forget anything I needed. It's a wedding. There's people there.
As you do, yeah.
Yeah. We had a wedding block reserved for us at the hotel. So after I'd made sure that I was all set with that, I could just go to my list and I checked off everything on my list and I double checked and triple checked. I do this thing where I wander around my apartment once I'm packed the night before the flight, just looking at things, wondering, do I need that? Like, is there anything that will jog my memory that I need? I had everything that I needed. It was time for the flight. I landed in Chicago. I met my friends and everything seemed grand. This was the night before the wedding. And I met my friends and we all went together to check into the hotel. And that's when I realized I actually never had reserved a room at the hotel. I was so anxious about not forgetting to pack anything. I forgot shelter. Shelter. That wasn't on my little spreadsheet. Toothbrush was, but shelter, no. And so I went there and I said, hi, I'm here for the wedding. And they said, we don't care. Those rooms are long gone. Long gone. This was months before that I had to do this. And I said, but I really want to come here. And they were like, no. No. The only room that they had was available was $900 a night. Obviously not an option. So yeah, sadly, with like the Charlie Brown music, like I just trudged out of the fancy hotel. Luckily, I found an affordable hotel like 3 blocks away, but that meant every morning for this 3-day trip, I would wake up, have to add 20 minutes to my schedule to leave my hotel that was not serving breakfast and watch my friends finish their free breakfast at their fancy hotel. And then they'd come out and meet me and we'd go explore Chicago. So even with a list and a spreadsheet, my idiocy prevails. Shelter.
Wow.
I have to add that now to a list.
You have to add that to a list.
How sad is that?
I'm a big fan of automated packing lists, and I think that is a great thing. And I have one too. It's sitting in my Todoist, and whenever I have a trip, I just duplicate that project and zero out everything, and then I have a template for a trip. I am going to add shelter to mine now, just in case.
Because it's like, you're never going to forget it. But when you do, Pete, it changes you. It really changes you. Like now, every time I leave the apartment, like, do I have everything I need to stay alive? Yes, the list is the number one, and I have a couple tips that I've been able to find that are apart from the most obvious tips. We'll share those a little bit later, but I wanted to talk about why I think and again, if you look online, there are a lot of us. There's a huge amount of people that have packing anxiety disorder. And I think I wanted to go over maybe why I think we have anxiety over it. I have it boiled down to, of course, as when I say this, nothing I ever say is profound. I'm sure all of these are cliched, but I said it. Number one, it's a fear of change. Obviously, if I forget a toiletry or something, I can always buy it in this other place, right? Or if I forget a shirt, I can buy one, but it'll be changed. What if they don't have what I need? And the stuff that I have and I wear from home, I know it works. I don't really know if this other city, Chicago, it's not like I'm going to this weird outpost, but still, it's not exactly what I'm used to. And so I think that might be part of it. For me,
do you have on your list, like, find out from locals if I have to hunt and kill my own food in Chicago?
Yeah, like what plants do I take if I have allergies? Like I have to go into a forest. Another one that really hits me is actually the fear of causing social problems. I guess it would be just social anxiety, either being a burden in slowing travel companions down while I remake all the stuff that I forgot to pack, or I let them go ahead and I have to go out in the town and find my stuff and I'll miss out on something fun or memorable while I get my stuff together. Again, these are pretty irrational fears and very small, but I'm just trying to figure out what's at the base of it. What am I really worried about? Yeah. And of course, the last one is probably the most obvious. It's just fear of the unknown. That whenever we're going to a new place, even though, as I said, it's an adventure, it's still the things that you bring from home are like a security blanket. They make you feel safe, so you feel like you can go out and explore and get lost in a city.
That gentle sense of familiarity.
Exactly.
Of home. Yeah.
And it occurred to me to have broken out those three. My hope for myself, and then maybe for listeners, is that knowing that kind of anxiety, it might just be an old fear. like an old primal fear that's not as important as you think. It's not as, you're not really worried about forgetting that shirt. You're worried about the unknown. And so maybe it drains some of the seemingly importance of that. And you can just, you can buy a new shirt. Let's do this. That's my hope.
I have a very high travel anxiety. I feel like every major step in travel, like just leaving the house on time, reduces my anxiety a little bit. Getting to security and getting checked in and getting to the other side reduces a little bit. So my entire day is like a giant thermometer cooling off until I get wherever I'm going. And layovers, forget layovers. I'm a hot mess with layovers. So don't even talk to me. I'm terrible.
That'd be a good name for a restaurant in an airport for layovers. Just hot mess.
Hot mess.
Just like take a seat.
I thought you were going to say, don't even talk to me. I'm terrible. What would you like on the menu? It's just regret and silence.
And
some tepid tap water and white bread.
And like every order comes with a toothbrush, just in case. Just in case. If you're looking for actual practical tips, apart from the anxiety, to either help you feel better or to actually be able to pack better, you can look on the internet. I would suggest looking up tips from flight attendants or tips from pilots. That's where I got a lot of different tips. One that really stuck out for me was that stewardesses and pilots, they always have a small bag filled with toiletries and absolute necessities that they never take out of their suitcase. They just have a duplicate part. So they have all of their toiletries in their restroom and then at home, and then in their bag, they always have this go bag ready to go. So there's no chance. So all they have to do is add clothes, and there's no chance to ever forget something like a toothbrush. That seems kind of smart.
Oh, yeah. I love the whole go bag concept, too. It makes me feel like I'm like Jack Bauer.
Yeah.
You know? Like I'm just ready for anything.
Yep. Yeah, I like that, too. So play spy and be like, yeah,
I travel once a year. With any significance. And so I can just imagine putting a bunch of clothes and stuff in there and then actually getting to my destination and discovering, I'm now way too fat and none of my clothes that were in my go bag fit. Right. And, does deodorant get stale? I don't know. Right. What is the grossest outcome?
Well, you packed a bunch of sandwiches. Yeah, I would think. Or like that
jelly.
That chowder didn't hold up. Something that I have learned that might be incredibly obvious, but I learned it a little bit late at night, is that hotels, almost every hotel has a ton of toiletries that they will give you for free because people forget stuff all the time. Yeah. And that's everything from hair gel to lip balm to toothpaste, toothbrushes, across the board. If you just go to the front desk, they just have this huge care package waiting for you. And if you're a cheap creep, you can just go down and add to your collection if you want, whenever you want.
Well, what's so great about that is they give you just everything, right? Yeah. They don't just give you a toothbrush. They give you everything in a little sachet.
Yeah, like shower caps. What's a shower cap for? I'm not. I don't even get it. And about clothes, and this is something that I have had to convince myself, and it's starting to work, but this is just for me, that ultimately, apart from like a key event, and this is about clothes, apart from a key event like a wedding where you really have to get dressed up, no one is ever going to care about what you're wearing as much as you do. Everyone's dealing with packing and what to wear, so no one's examining you. No one's judging you as much as you think. You can wear some of the same clothes a lot. Washing machines do exist. If you have a 2-week trip, pack for 1 week at most. I would think that really take some of that pressure off. Unless you're an Instagram person, you don't have to worry so much. You're just driving yourself up the wall. And
if you're an Instagram person, maybe consider not being that.
Oh, yeah. Also think about the choices you've made. And no one cares about your omelet.
Right.
And
too much pressure.
Yeah. So, yes, I actually, while I was in New York, I did work on writing up the notes for this anxiety when I forgot my toothbrush. And I'm actually going to try to, for once, use some of these ideas for my life, because even in New York, I packed like an idiot. I have too many clothes. My suitcase is bursting with clothes that I never wore, and I forgot a toothbrush, Pete.
But isn't it how nice sometimes that these ideas for your contribution to this show, they just come to you so easily.
What do you mean?
Easy, like it's just from your experience through your hand to your pen.
Yes.
You may travel like an idiot child, but my goodness, do you know how to contribute to the anxiety catalog?
It's weird. I am a walking physician, heal thyself inspirational poster. I'm just the worst.
Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/scent of a podcast. Over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, your Android device, your Kindle, or MP3 player. Fantastic service. Oh, Tom, I am just eating up audiobooks this week. What are you listening to?
I am listening to a wonderful book that I'm really enjoying. It's called The Power by Naomi Alderman. And why I wanted to bring it up this week is because it is very much in tune with a female dystopian fiction. Have you heard of The Power?
I've never, not even a little bit, never heard of it.
I think you'll like it. Number one, it comes with a blurb from Margaret Atwood on the cover.
Oh, we know she's the patron saint of female dystopian fiction.
Exactly. It's not necessarily a dystopia in that it doesn't take place in the future, but it sort of suggests an alternative reality where what happened if women all of a sudden possessed a fierce new, almost paranormal power for reasons that are pretty much unexplained, but it could just be evolutionary. All of a sudden, teenage girls now have an immense physical power. I won't explain what the power is because it'll be better to hear on your own, but they can all of a sudden cause agonizing pain and even death in certain situations. And with this small twist of nature, the entire world drastically resets. It is really, really thrilling. Again, it's The Power by Naomi Alderman, and I highly recommend it. I think you should put it on your list, Pete. It's very exciting.
It's already in my wish list, Tom. As I speak, I have already added it to my wish list. I'm definitely going to listen to it in the next month.
Excellent. I think you and our listeners will enjoy it. It is 12 hours and 5 minutes long, so I personally listened to it as I wandered around my apartment getting ready to pack for New York. That's how long I just go back and forth and then forget things that are very obvious.
For you, the listeners of What's That Smell, Audible is offering a free audiobook download with a free 30-day trial to give you the opportunity to check out their service and listen to over 180,000 titles, samples, and see what you think. You know they got this new thing, the Audible Originals. Are you familiar with this?
I don't think so. What is that?
I want to talk to you about the Audible Originals. It's this new thing they're producing that you can only get on Audible. And if you sign up for a subscription, then you can download 2 of these new Audible Originals a month and not use credits. And I just listened to a new one called Lullaby. It's actually a 36-minute short story by Jonathan Mayberry. It's a ghost story, and it's super spooky. And it is included in your membership. So if you choose to stick around with Audible, you can listen to Tom's story about girls who can kill people and my story about ghosts. And happy October, everybody.
And remember, we don't pay to advertise this show, so please, the best thing you can do, apart from, of course, giving us a 5-star review in iTunes or Apple Podcasts, is share it with your friends. Tell just one person. If each one of you tells one person about this podcast, we will be up to like a dozen listeners. So let's do this, everybody. Help us get up to that sweet, sweet 20 listeners, and we will thank you forever. But please, thank you very much. Share the love with your review and just share the podcast wherever you want.
Coming up next week. Yeah.
Hey, you CBD.
Oh, yeah.
I keep it in my man bun.
Would you like a gummy? I have it right here in my hot pocket. Let's be clear. Unless you are a scientist, right. It's not science. You're just throwing crap on the wall.
No, every time I smile when I'm nervous, I'm a scientist. This week's tune is For the One by Eldar Kadem. Thank you all so much for listening. I'm Tommy Metz III.
And I'm Pete Wright. We'll be back next week on What's That Smell?
We go any place that we want to. I don't care if that's too far. Take my hand and let's fly away to another galaxy. Hold me close, I want to feel your love. Together we are free. Just be with me. Just be with me. Just be